Kansas City Chiefs and the San Francisco 49ers. And then also, if you're inclined, say what beverage is going to be in your right hand while you're watching the game. Whatever your favorite beverage is, say that. Share that with us if you would. If it's hot tea, Kenton, say hot tea. If it's a Busch Light, Mike, then say Busch Light. Busch Light. All drinks are welcome there. A Busch Latte, there you go. And I know that, again, we need one more reform because we need to approve the minutes from October as well, which we weren't able to do in December. And we'll also want to do that for the December meeting. No quorum. No quorum. No.
Yeah, maybe somebody will walk in and we can clap for them. That would be good.
Okay. Well, everybody,
Introduction. We'll take that nice and slow, and then we'll see.
nice and slow. Thanks for coming. I always like to also point out the reason why we're here as a sub committee of MAPA's board is to think big, to be friends, to know each other, to support each other, think regionally, and to make sure that MAPA's board has information from technical folks, transportation professionals, planners, people that are in resource districts, in education, housing, and all the things to make sure we have a united voice to report up and to make suggestions for how our regional planning agency, our MPO, can serve our region better and in a more unified way. So thank y'all for being here and always sticking with us. Mike, kick us off with who you are and what you're going to be sipping.
Sure. Well, Mike Helgerson with MAPA. I'm sure I'll have a beer of some sort in my hand. You know, I can't not root for Patrick Mahomes. You know, how do you turn away from Braves?
There's that. I'm a Cowboys fan, so I'm trying to figure out which one of them I like the least. Hey, everybody, Key Station, Omaha Mayor's office. I'm going to pick the Chiefs as well, and I'm gonna have a nice San Pellegrino with some limes around the edge of it. I think that's what I'm gonna have.
Kent Holm, Environmental Services Director, Douglas County. Yeah, I thought Mahomes would have been out 3 rounds ago, but so I'll go that way. Yeah, I know they beat the Ravens, but
I'm still going for the Ravens.
yeah, it will be a barrel aged dark stout or something like that. Yeah.
Nice.
Laura Dietrich, Douglas County Planning and Zoning. I am going for the Ravens still. If I was a betting woman, I would have lost everything because I thought for sure we were winning it. I will probably have a lot of beverages going, probably some iced coffee, some water, and a Fresca. I'm so excited.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Carol Vinton, Mills County Supervisor, and as you have heard on the news, Glenwood hit the news, starting with RAGBRAI. So last weekend, I was honored to go up there and accept the surprise because honestly, they make this such a huge ordeal. The cops come driving in, the Civic, and has a suitcase chained to his wrist, and everybody from all the counties in Iowa, you know, we just can't. Well, I just knew that Glenwood Southwest is not going to do it because we're very hilly. Well, when we want it, that's what we want because the bikers love the hills. So come over, see the rolling hills, and it's going to be quite the trip. So I had a lot of Tito's that night, and I suppose I'll have a lot of Tito's one day. But it's going to be the Chiefs. Okay. So there we go.
I like you to slid that in there, Carol, at the RAGBRAI. That's outstanding. Tito's and Chiefs.
Yes. And RAGBRAI.
And RAGBRAI. I see them.
Matt Wayne with Potawatomi County Planning and Development. I'll say that it's going to probably be the Chiefs and probably going to be in the hot tea category. Yeah.
Go ahead, Mark.
Back here, I know.
And
Okay.
then we'll swing back around.
Okay, Mark Norman with the Greater Omaha Chamber. I'll be rooting for the San Francisco Chiefs. I just want a good game, so that's what I'm hoping for. I mean, Chiefs, I'm gonna probably say, but that doesn't matter. And I will actually be on vacation, so I'll probably have a little fruity drink with a little umbrella in it. And just sitting back and enjoying life, I guess, all right?
Nice, nice. Martin's food for Taylor Swift.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, Leland Jacobson with the city of Bellevue. I'm the Bellevue Planning Commission representing Bellevue and definitely the Chiefs and maybe something single maltish.
Uh-huh.
Hi, Christine Stokes, City of Gretna, also lifelong Chiefs fans, go Chiefs. And except Taylor Swift, we're not going there. But hopefully I will have something with either some vodka or tequila in my hand, so.
Terry Hockenwalk and counter, I'll go with Brock Purdy and the Rangers, Cyclone, and I'm gonna use the
Mike Jensen, Gas County Planning and Zoning. Chiefs, probably have a glass of Jim Beam and a cherry coke somewhere in the vicinity. It may not get.
There we go.
Gotta do a shout out for Brand over on the Nebraska side here. We start on Valentine and heading down to Lewis. Getting off down there in Louisville. Cool.
Chris Gibbons, planning manager, City Council Bluffs, huge Green Bay Packers fan. Unfortunately, the 49ers have had our numbers in the playoffs for many, many years, so I will definitely be rooting for the Kansas City Chiefs. I will have a smoked barbecue chicken wing in my right hand. Arnold Palmer with a splash of Crown Royal peach in it in my left.
There we go.
Like that.
Sue Cutsforth with MAPA. I too am a Packers fan, and I will be rooting for the Chiefs because I will be visiting my cousins who grew up in Northern California and are huge Niners fans, and they go on and on about the Niners. So I hope to be enjoying a Yingling.
Charlie Harrington with MAPA. I don't know. This is the first I've heard of either team, so I don't know who I'm rooting for. And I will probably just be drinking a LaCroix or something.
Nice. We'll try, it's heavy on the cheap side, so I would probably go the other way.
Yeah, maybe we'll do that. Yeah.
Well, he's seated next to me and I'm gonna go for the 49ers.
Okay.
So I think I'm gonna do my homework to get shooting for the 49ers. So, yeah, it's all of us now.
Laura Helm and MAPA, I assume we're talking about the Super Bowl?
Yeah.
We'll go with Kansas City.
Carlos Morales, probably 49ers, keeping it true to the California roots here. Probably my left hand, probably my IPA, and my right hand, probably chips and dips.
Tim Adams with WSP. I'm going for the Chiefs. Again, I'm also a Packers fan and the 49ers stink. I'll probably be drinking the Korean peanut butter porter. Yeah.
Lindsay Button, MAPA. This is also the first I'm hearing of the Super Bowl. So I'm probably gonna say regardless of which team wins, I'm sure they're all gonna do their best. And I will probably be drinking kombucha, because that's usually what I have.
Owen Stuckey, MAPA, I'm a Vikings fan, I'm sorry, but I am faithful to the NFC, so go Niners and a Blue Moon.
Nice.
Hi, Ashley Ray Turner, I'm Stacy Lovegren. My true winner is gonna be Usher. That's who I'm rooting for. I think I'll drink. It depends on what bar my friend decides to go to. We might go to Let It Fly, so they have a nice blue drink that people like, so I'll try that.
Blue drink, let it fly, sounds good. And also for those that may not know, Usher is performing at halftime.
I'll go.
Okay, Usher.
For the Chiefs, I am a lifelong Broncos fan, and my uncle is a Lions fan, so solidarity.
There are more people for Usher than there are for San Francisco.
I'm gonna have to look at Usher and Taylor Swift.
Hi, I'm Meredith Dillon. I'm with Blair Freeman Group. I'm I'm gonna go against the odds and root for Taylor Swift because it's fun to watch a woman get men so upset in a Super Bowl. Congratulations.
I love it.
Eric Williams, NRD, Rice University alum, so we all love to support the Superb Owl, and I guess we're gonna find out who the Superb Owl is. Letters. All right, just making sure we're all. All right, great. So, yeah, and I'm not 100% sure I'm gonna watch the game. I had the coolest Niners starter jacket when I was like 10. I'm not sure if that still lingers, so I'll find out if that's what I'm.
Should bring it back out here.
I'm sure it still fits.
Yeah, it was so cool.
Jeff Spees with Lamper and Earson. My house is all except all girls, so I think Taylor Swift is the main point of interest, like when they show her on the screen. So that's who I'm rooting for is Taylor Swift, similar to what Meredith and sort of through Taylor Swift, the Chiefs, so probably drink a Boulevard Tank 7.
Good choice.
Jeff Fireman, City of Blair. I gotta agree with a few other people. The only true winner will be Taylor Swift, who goes from 1 billion net worth to 1.5 billion net worth by the end of the game. And my son is a Detroit Lions fan, so we'll be drinking whatever it brings up, which will probably be dark and sad.
Good morning, Eva Roberts with Front Porch Investments. My 6-year-old is like having his awakening to sports and very excited about the Chiefs. So we'll be rooting for them and I'll probably be drinking a dry, hard apple cider.
Thank y'all for indulging us. We've got folks online here. They said that Taylor, I think, has something like a $330 million impact on the Chiefs as well. Bruce, come on and introduce yourself and make your pick.
Good morning, Bruce Fountain, City of La Vista. Sorry I couldn't make it out there this morning, but I've been a diehard Chiefs fan since I was 5 years old. So I'm always pulling for them. The tough thing this year is the San Francisco have a great quarterback from Iowa State University.
Yeah.
Who went from being the last pick in the draft to being up for the MVP this year. So I'm also pulling for him.
Okay, what are you sipping on, Bruce?
Don't know yet.
That's fair too. Court, can you hear us?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
Yep, come on.
I'm Court Barber with MAPA. I don't necessarily have a dog in the fight. I guess I'll go with the Missouri team. Well, I guess as far as a beverage, we'll see where the day takes me.
Michael?
Yep, Michael Blank with MAPA. I am a lifelong Vikings fan, so I'm just gonna put that there in that corner, and then I don't know what I'll do for a drink at the moment.
And then last, who's there last?
I'm not sure. Art Griffin?
Who's our Griffin? Our Griffin.
Good morning. I'm sorry. This is Robert Griffin with the Urban League.
Oh, fantastic.
Hey, Robert.
Hello, Keith. How are you?
Good.
The dog that I had in the race was the Los Angeles Rams, and since they're on the couch, I'm going to go ahead and go with the Kansas City Chiefs for the win, and I'm going to have an Arnold Palmer.
There you go.
There you go.
Lemonade iced tea. All right. Thank you. Well, thanks, everybody.
So during that, I did adjust my count and we do have quorum today, so.
Everybody, voting members for showing up. So we did a good job. And so first, we'll approve those separately. I know that we didn't have quorum at the last meeting, so I know you all have reviewed the October meeting minutes. And so if there aren't any corrections or additions, would entertain a motion to approve the minutes for October. Terry, thank you. Is there a second? Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition to the minutes for October? Seeing none, minutes approved for October. And for December 1st meeting. Take a look if you haven't looked. Would entertain a motion to approve the minutes for December.
I so move.
Second.
Motion second, all in favor?
You guys have to tell me who seconds. Okay, perfect. Who seconded on the first one?
I didn't.
Okay, thank you. Sorry. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, we'll make sure to note that. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? Seeing none, minutes for December approved. Okay, great. So now, Carlos, are you ready to come up and for the main event? Talk about the climate pollution reduction grant.
Wonderful.
It should just click. On the- there.
What you working on?
Just click it.
And then move it.
So, today we're gonna talk about climate pollution reduction grant. I know there's a lot of information, a lot of different things going on. And I promise to try to kind of clear the air and try to help everyone understand. It's a very interesting opportunity provided by the EPA. We're currently in phase one. It's a two-phase project and you'll get all the lingo down when we're done. But you may have heard that this EPA grant is kind of asking for greenhouse pollution and we'll talk about P caps and C caps and all these different things. Well, there is, and there are a lot of different efforts going on at the same time. The state of Nebraska was also eligible and received an award from the EPA to do an entire statewide. So the state of Nebraska is doing climate pollution action grant as well. And they're covering the entire state. For more information, we have the website there, and on our website, we have more information. Look, this grant really requires three main things at this time. One is an inventory of a region or a sector or a geography. The sector for the state is looking at a greenhouse inventory for the entire state of Nebraska. For the MAPA one, and we'll get to that in a little bit, our regional focus is the 7 county regions, 4 counties in Nebraska, 3 counties in Iowa. So it's a very interesting list. And then the city of Omaha is looking at the city of Omaha boundaries and contained within the city of Omaha. So all of these efforts are really doing 3 main things. Like I said, a greenhouse inventory, just figuring out where the greenhouse gases are coming from, divided into the different sectors of a station, and we'll get into that in a little bit. 2, we're developing a priority climate action plan. So when you might hear the word PCAP, or like, oh my God, the PCAP is due. And you're gonna see me with my hair on fire, running around, yelling PCAP, PCAP. That's our priority climate action plan. What we're doing is kind of synthesizing where the inventories are, where the major greenhouse pollutants are in our geographic scope, and trying to figure out what priorities or what solutions we could present to take those greenhouse gases down, right? So that's the PCAP. Finally, one of the things that we're also doing is outreach. We're all outreaching and getting more information from local communities to understand how we can develop a plan that provides priorities that are shared by members of our region, members of our communities, and how to help prioritize those activities, things that are going on, things that local communities are planning to do to be able to access the phase 2, which is the funding side of things. So everything that we say in the PCAP is referenced for this phase 2 implementation grant. So if you're not included in any of the PCAPs for the state, the city, or our county, or our MAPA regional one, then hey, let's talk. Let's set up some time to talk. And who are the people you can talk to? You can talk to this guy, Laura, Lindsay, Owen, or Grant. But that in a nutshell is what we're trying to do. And you'll see why I say my hair is gonna be on fire. But this is the city of Omaha. They're currently participating through their Omaha CAP. They're developing a greenhouse gas. They're also developing strategies and implementation opportunities. their first open house is actually February 13th. I definitely encourage you to go out and participate with that. We're working in tandem and in lockstep with the city of Omaha, trying to figure out what the best solutions are for our regional plan. And like I said, these are the big geographic regions. For the MSA portion, the one that we're doing, the greater Omaha, we're looking at Washington, Douglas, RPAC, Saunders counties on the Nebraska side, and Harrison, Potawatomi, and Mills on the Iowa side. Now, trying to get an inventory for one location, one little city is hard enough. Trying to get it for all 7 in 2 different states with multiple vendors for electricity consumption, et cetera, gets quite difficult. And so we're trying our darndest to get this done. And why? Well, one of the big things that we're trying to reach, our PCAP's due to the EPA March 1st. And so that is the impetus of why my hair's on fire, why I'm gonna be screaming PCAP, 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 get it done for the next couple of weeks, is because we have our first report due to the EPA on March 1st. And so let's take a step back. What are we trying to do? Like I said, greenhouse inventory, outreach and engagement, and trying to prioritize reduction measures to these greenhouse gases. We're really looking to prioritize projects and or strategies. I think on this first pass, what we're really looking for is, hey, local communities, do you have certain actions or certain activities or certain projects that you're looking to implement in the next 6 to 10 years that are currently going on, right? Let us know so we can include it into our PCAP. 2, how do we quantify emissions reductions of some of the activities that we're doing? Obviously, that's gonna be a very tricky and fun exercise for Owen to take on. Thank you. And then looking at how this benefits local disadvantaged communities and looking at it at the macro level. And so the reason I say the macro level is we're looking at a 7-county region. And one of the things that we're exploring and understanding is that for a smaller community that is really interested in trying to develop an electric charger for their community, that single investment is a large investment for their community. Whereas when you look at the city of Omaha, one single charger is not going to do a whole lot, right? And so we're trying to figure out how do we straddle and or provide information that will be both useful for the city of Omaha, but also for our other communities throughout the region. So what are greenhouse gases? Here's a list: carbon dioxide, methane, nitrous oxide, and other industrial gases, fuel combustion, landfill, gas operations. That's kind of the main thing. Here are the key sources. So what we're looking at is the greenhouse gases produced by stationary. When we talk about stationary, maybe that's not the best word. Maybe a better word might be the built environment, right? So all the buildings, whether they're residential, commercial, or industrial, what are their outputs of greenhouse gases? How do we heat our homes? How do we heat our industrial buildings and commercial buildings? Are we using gas or electric? What's the percentage of each building that's using that? What's their square footage? What are their needs and uses? Mobile transportation, obviously, vehicles going out and about, electricity and water consumption, agriculture and land management, forestry, and waste production. Now, we may not have a perfect picture of everything, and we've been trying desperately to reach out to all our providers about all these different greenhouse gases. And some of the data doesn't exist in a consumable format, right? So we might have the data just for the state and not at the county level. Or we might have it for an individual housing level, but not at a county level. And so we're really trying to see how we can provide very detailed and good inventory information with non-perfect information coming in. So in looking at that, we took a step back and said, hey, what is currently available so we can help guide some of these discussions? And what we found is that for the state of Nebraska, on your left-hand side, And for the state of Iowa, this is how the greenhouse gas sinks occur. You'll see that the majority of it really resonates around agriculture for both states. Yes, they are very agricultural business, et cetera, for both states, but where Nebraska has 45%, Iowa has 35%. The next is electrical power, so the power generation and power production. Those two make up nearly 50% of the greenhouse gases on both states. Then we have transportation and urban landscape or built environment, taking up the rest. Now, this is one way to view it as percent of the total. Hey, here's another way. So we can compare states by their sectors. Again, you can see agriculture, again, being higher for Nebraska, electric power, but then all the others, Iowa leading the way. And a different way to do it. Again, this is 4 million metric tons of CO2 equivalent. So what that means is that all these different greenhouse gases come in different varieties, different types of units. Some are CO2, some are not CO2, some are very different. And so we're trying to convert everything to something that's an equivalent of 1 million metric tons of CO2. Just a little data science behind all this. All these conversion factors, you could ask Owen for more details. He's a pro. He's an
After March 1st.
So obviously a lot of the agricultural and electric power are kind of the biggest things for both states. And so that's an area we're looking to try to find different solutions that might work. But missing from the state data is the waste production and waste management, water consumption, and urban forestry and ecosystems. So those were information sources that we can find at the state level for the EPA inventories back in 2021. But we know that those are important things to look at going forward as well. So what we ended up doing is trying to find out, hey, what's the state doing? So, you know, pardon my my interruption here, but what we actually did was look at what the state's priority reduction measures are and got a peek at the cities, and we were able to compare it. Does this have those slides?
It does. So just go ahead, you'll see the next one, but
And so-
you've got the handout as well printed.
If you want to follow along, I'll give a couple of examples, high level notes, right? Some of the, and I always start with transportation because I am a transportation guy, I'm sorry. But you'll see that for the state, their priority measures are to provide incentives and to provide incentives for new EVs, replacements for heavy duty vehicles is very geared towards providing additional incentives for others to take on. At the city of Omaha level, we get down in a lot more specific in saying decreasing vehicle miles traveled by 2.5% by 2030. 2030, just, you know, so we're all on the same page, is 6 years away. And the last time we saw a 2.5% reduction or a reduction of significance was back in 2020, where we saw a 10% reduction within the transportation management area, which includes Douglas, RP, and Ottawa. For more information, you may have heard little old Mike give a little report on the traffic report that we just produced. So if you want more,
You can hear Owen today, so.
yeah, and you'll hear more from Owen later today. I forgot we were doing that. Anyway, so at the city of Omaha level, we're getting really more specific and more prescriptive in what we're trying to achieve. Measurable goals, measurable outcomes, which is really good and really great, great opportunity. And again, go out to the February 13th. I'm gonna plug that as much as I can to get more information and more input into this project. We understand that some of those may not work for the entire county. And so as part of the PCAP, our PCAP, we're looking at creating a broad stroke. How do we integrate some of the incentive measures that the state is looking for with some of the more detailed information from the city of Omaha? And that's a challenge. We'll get into residential, commercial, again, stationary building, built environment. Again, looking to, at the state, promote provide additional funding, again, incentivize and promote, and you'll get the picture of how these things are going. Whereas the city of Omaha is really looking at developing targets for electrical energy efficiency with 5%, switching from natural gas to electrical, right? So switching out your furnace sources, switching out your heating sources, et cetera, et cetera. But they're getting more prescriptive and more precise. Last one, I promise, energy and energy use. Again, state looking to establish hub and spoke brand. So that's kind of an artifact of their agricultural priority. But taking the gas from anaerobic digesters and using that instead of just letting it bed off, looking for incentives, looking for additional funding to produce solars and microarrays for wastewater and treatment plants. Whereas the city of Omaha is looking to increase the portfolio of renewable sources from their electrical consumption. Again, you get the hint, right? The state is looking at prioritizing providing incentives and providing potential funding partners for some of these, and the city's looking for a little bit more details with that. And you can read the rest of them, but that's pretty much where we're at. Why we're here today, what we're trying to ask is we're really trying to ascertain how are the proposed strategies differently implemented at the regional level? How do we best get to that? How do we get to that middle ground where it's prescriptive enough to help the cause and work that the city of Omaha is doing? And two, be able to be implemented and useful for some of our other communities that are outside the Omaha metro region, right? So I put that to you. The other big question is, are there strategies that we should be aware of and we should know? Do you want to share some of those with us? We would love to include them and make sure they're included. As I said, we do have an EPA phase 2, and we'll talk about that after we're done with discussions. So I'm opening up the floor. Questions, comments, discussions?
What kind of money is this grant?
This one, phase 1 or phase 2? Either one?
Either one.
Either one. This is part of the IRA dollars and things that were done, part of IIJA and all that federal stuff. Look, anyway, for our region, I think, and Mike, correct me if I'm wrong, for the regional plan, we received $1 million with the city.
City of Omaha received $1 million.
City of Omaha received $1 million to develop these plans. Phase 2, we're looking at, I don't remember the numbers.
So for the planning grants, the city of Omaha received $1 million to create this PCAP and then later the CCAP, which is gonna be the final bigger overarching, more detailed plan. This phase 2 piece that Carlos is talking about is kind of the implementation side, which I'll talk about in a minute. But those grants are gonna be implementation dollars for projects and strategies that are identified in the preliminary plan that we're currently putting together. And there are like several $1 billion of funding within that stream, but the minimum grant amount they're looking at for implementation funding is about $2 million. So they have a bunch of different brackets of how big these grants could be. Smallest one we're looking at is 2 million, and I'm not honestly sure what the biggest one is off the top of my head, but.
And it's nationally competitive.
Yeah.
Right? So just as this region, this area is looking at doing some work here, so are the California, New York's, St. Louis's of the US also doing this, and the states as well. Yes.
Question and a comment. The February 13th meeting, I just tried to Google that real quick and I don't see any information online about that. Do you have any details on when that meeting is or where?
So the city of Omaha is still trying to put that together.
Okay.
I know that they were looking at locations out in West Omaha and having a little bit of difficulty finding a location to host. So hopefully they'll be having more information out in the immediate future, and we can make sure that the group is updated when we hear what that's gonna look like.
Great. And then on the comment side, at Blair Freeman Group, we're working on a workforce development program for training a workforce in energy efficiency and retrofits for low to moderate income families. Part of the thing I think it's important for all of us to keep in mind is like the Justice 40 umbrella under the IRA that says that this money should go in particular to communities that have been energy burdened. So I think it's really important if we're thinking about job creation and wealth creation through these different implementation strategies that we're looking at making sure that folks in North and South Omaha, where the energy burden is highest, are also benefiting from the investments that are being made.
And not just at the city of Omaha level, but at the greater scale.
Absolutely.
Including Bellevue, pretty much all Council Bluffs, and Missouri Valley in Washington County, Iowa. So yes.
Carlos,
Yes.
this seems like a tremendous undertaking. So what can cities and communities and MAPA's region do to help you guys get this information? And are you also willing maybe to meet with us to help identify projects that could help facilitate?
1,000%, yes. Yes, I think, well, after this slide and after our discussion, we would like you all, our stakeholders in this, to be able to take an online survey that kind of gives us feedback. And that feedback, just right in, I think in the last one, call us back, we want to meet with you. And Lindsay or Laura or Grant and myself will like get together and talk through it.
Okay. I think the initial piece here too, and Carlos and Lindsay have kind of touched on it. PCAP is sort of this initial sort of look at it. It's not comprehensive like the second piece is. And so we're going to be going where we have kind of the best data to understand some of these trends. The challenge is that EPA has tied that PCAP directly to this first round of funding, and it said, strategies, projects need to be identified in this. And so if communities are interested in pursuing that funding, we want to make sure we know about those needs. And so if that's something you're looking at or any of the other community partners are looking at, that's really kind of the impetus for this, is that make sure that the strategy, the project, the need is identified at this early stage. EPA announced this funding back in March and they didn't get it out until August. So there's been a big gap in terms of, communities really accelerating to do this. We're not the only ones struggling. I thought they would move the date back. And so it's been a bit of a challenge here to kind of meet this initial deadline. That said, it's a really transformational opportunity, and not just aligning this kind of initial grant funding opportunity, but federal assistance more broadly. So this will be an important piece of that going forward.
And Mike, that'd be a follow-up question. I'll be honest, I'm a complete novice to this, so please forgive me. But I think it would be important from like the city standpoint to know is that, if we move forward with this grant and successful, that there could be opportunities maybe for more increased like CDBG funding for like weatherization, rehabilitation of homes, or transportation funding, maybe to make your street networks a little more efficient. Like, is that what we're talking about? Like, is that kind of like what you could get out of this deal if we get funded?
I think they're like, it's highly competitive, all right? Like, I'm not gonna lie. We looked at the application process. It's about 25 pages, of which like 10 have to be budget and really detailed information. So for a single community to say, hey, we would like to install one charger, that's not gonna be highly competitive. I'll be flat out, that's not gonna be highly competitive. What they're looking for is coalitions of groups. So say the city of Council Bluffs is teaming up with Mid-America Energy and creating a new weatherization project that focuses on low-income communities within the city of Council Bluffs, where your initial target is targeting, I don't know, say 1,000 homes. And the dollar value is $5 million in the next 5 years, or whatever the money amount is. City and Mid-America have half of that, say. That remainder gap, that would be really good to put into this phase 2 application. But for us and the purposes of the PCAP, we need to know, hey, cities and electric companies need to partner and be at the table for an incentive program for weatherization. That's where we come in. That's where we put it into the PCAP, and you use that to help apply.
But I would just say too, knowing, like being able to point to, like we do in consolidated plans and everything else, where you say, look, this was identified as a need in the regions, pre-PCAP and CCAP, and, for other grant assistance, it's certainly going to be important to demonstrate, every grant application from the federal government right now has a climate focus. That's been kind of the iteration of these last several bills. And this is a way of demonstrating demonstrating alignment with the regional goals, the city's goals, the state goals. So absolutely, even if it's not this initial EPA opportunity, which seems like a huge lift just with the timing. You know, the PCAP deadline is March 1st, that grant is due April 1st. And so there's kind of a narrow window here to sort of identify a need and do the work to apply. We're doing this work so that we can make sure that communities don't miss out on that opportunity just by us not putting in that effort. But the case is still, as Carlos noted, the minimum grant thresholds, the type of projects that seem to be incentivized through this program. You know, we don't have, you know, a decade or more of experience in putting these types of projects together through communities that are a little bit more farther along in the climate action planning process and implementation. So we're at a disadvantage, but we also don't want to miss any opportunities. So that's kind of where we're at. We're stuck on.
It's good. Thank you for that clarification, Mike, and thank you for that point, Carlos. That's, you know, at the top of your agenda, it says think big. That's what we're supposed to be doing. I sent a note to try to get some information about February 13th, and if I hear back, I'll let you know on if we know where or any additional details. And then before you go there, one more question. So I was in a conversation recently where somebody mentioned, yes, I think that this, you know, getting around climate action planning and work is important, but you've all heard the narrative, but what can we really do? And so my question for you, I guess, is how harmful is it? And how do we, you know, is it necessary to counter the narrative that, yes, we can all do better to address climate action issues and you know, GHGs, but what can we really do? What's the answer to how we can sort of understand that we aren't gonna solve it by 2030, but we need to get after it aggressively and at scale and in a big way with partnerships competing against other communities that are farther along. How do we counter that?
I think part of it goes back to a quality of life and the quality of life that we have stated multiple times in multiple projects and multiple different discussions that we're working to improve the quality of life for every resident within our region. And this does some of that. This helps us get to that, right? Whether it's low income and distressed communities having to face the burdens of climate pollution, you know, that's not a good quality of life. And how do we improve that? This is a way of doing that, right? So I think I would say that. Two, it's a really large, complex problem. We're not really gonna solve it right away. I think we've been working on some of this stuff for years and decades at this point, and we'll continue to work on it. But just because it's hard and difficult doesn't mean we shouldn't take it on. I think for the betterment of our community, to help workforce development, to help our low income and distressed communities that have faced these burdens for countless of years, for decades, it behooves us to take on this work.
Yeah, and I would just say it sits at kind of the, I mean, as you kind of keep addressing the top of the agenda, it sits at, I would say, the intersection of so many things that we've sort of looked at through the Heartland 2050 regional vision. And it's really, I think, you know, climate action in general is really kind of the prototype for what we talk about when we talk about systems thinking, that it's not, you know, we can't fix it by just shifting to electric vehicles. We can't fix it just by weatherization and energy efficiency improvements. It really takes a concerted effort to see the linkages between those things and the opportunities to implement them, because, you know, private sector is limited on the amount of investment that they can make. Public sector is limited. Philanthropy is limited. Like there's not a unlimited amount of funding to do this. We have to prioritize. But what we want to make sure is that we're not just taking things that come out of nowhere. We're not just taking best practices that we find from other places. Let's align it as well as we can with local needs to make sure that the steps that we're taking reinforce those policies, those plans that we have at the local level. So that's why we were excited that the city of Omaha opted into this and asked us to partner on it, because it does seem like an opportunity to make some progress towards these goals more generally, but do it on our own terms and help define for our federal partners, you know, what it means, how we can make some intentional steps in this direction, and really align with work that's already going on. That's been kind of, I think, a key takeaway is that there's a lot of things that are already going on. I don't think anybody's kind of stitched some of those things together or really understood how fast or how quickly we can accelerate some of those opportunities to make an even greater impact. And so that'd be the pitch, but I think, you know, it is one of these vicious problems, wicked problems of local government, state government, private sector, federal government, just how do you actually work to address this? And it's an opportunity to really think about that.
Thanks, Mike. And so before we, or as we answer these questions specifically that Carlos has posed, Eric, got a comment?
Oh, sure. As background for communities in our area, the city of Omaha did have an Office of Sustainable Development from 2010 until 2013 that implemented several grants, mostly focused on energy efficiency in homes and buildings, as well as the traffic signal upgrade to LEDs, which showed hundreds of thousands of dollars of savings to the city of Omaha. And that led eventually to the LED upgrades for the streetlights that OPPD implemented, showing even more significant savings to all of the communities who are served by OPPD. So there is precedent in our region for this type of work. And 10 years later, I'm glad to see that work returning through city, MAPA, and state planning. A couple of the strategies that we've talked about are just kind of high level notes real quick. From the 6 categories, the EPA categories that you showed earlier, we are about to push all of our stationary and mobile into electricity. And so that is going to be a big shift. Yeah, it's gonna be a big shift into the future. And I'm glad to see OPPD listed as a partner. For clarification, I'm also the chair of the board of directors of OPPD outside of my day job. And so OPPD has a decarbonization plan. As we push other sources of energy consumption into electricity, the electricity will continue to get cleaner from now until our long-term net zero goal by 2050. And so from a broad sense of what are strategies to accomplish this, everything that can be electrified at an economic investment should, and OPPD will then continue to reduce the emissions from all of those things. And so in those first 3 categories, I think you're going to see them squished together pretty quickly. And the way that we account for the emissions is going to become more interesting because electricity is going to grow in energy production, but shrink in emissions. And the magic there is that renewables are the cheapest source of new electric generation, full stop. And so how are you going to provide dramatically more energy with dramatically less emissions? Renewable energy, which is abundant in Nebraska, is the answer. And also Iowa is the answer. The next major kind of top level strategy I would suggest is that we talked about in the stationary category, the work to upgrade the existing building stock. But as a reminder, MAPA has lots of plans that project the population and development patterns in the region from now until 2050. And all of those patterns suggest significant growth. And at every opportunity for new development, we make choices over what type of resources are we going to consume in those new locations. New build implies a choice. And when you make a choice, make sure that choice is aligned with the long-term outcomes that will that need to be accomplished before the projected end of useful life of the asset that you're building. So specifically, I would encourage reminding everyone to remember that we should separate the existing infrastructure and existing building stock from the new build infrastructure and new build building stock. And when new build occurs, cities and counties and communities can lean heavily into a policy that supports electrification of new build. Because while you can reduce emissions from electricity at the grid level, once you invest in a fossil fuel asset, a furnace in a home or a new combustion vehicle, there is nothing you can do until the end of the useful life of that asset to reduce those emissions. I guess maybe some biofuels, something like that. But the likelihood of that achieving the outcome on the timeline we're talking about is very, very limited. So the strategies for communities, there are things that communities specifically can and will need to lead in terms of building code and policy to encourage that shift in the stationary and mobile categories into electricity. And OPPD is glad to be a partner on developing plans for how that's going to occur. But that is going to be a shift from where we have been in the past. The good news is that it also is currently and will continue to get even more cheaper than not electrifying our new build and new infrastructure developments. So, you know, there's a lot of benefit that comes from that, but I guess I would encourage that the overlap between those 3 and the differentiation between existing and future be kept in mind for the strategies as we talk about how we're going to accomplish this.
I'm curious on earlier the language use of promote and incentivize. Is that sort of specific to our region or that federal level? And
I think that's from the state level. The
Okay.
state strategy is really looking to promote and incentivize. I think it's one of the key words I kept seeing over and over in their strategies. So at the state level, that's their priority to help push this along to provide incentives or provide additional funding.
With MAPA's ability to convene policymakers and elected officials, do you see an opportunity to help provide examples to institutionalize some of these goals and use like sort of policy as a strategy to drive results?
I think I haven't thought that far ahead right now, to be honest. Like brutally honest, that I have not really thought about the next 10 steps. I might be on step 1 or 2 right now, trying to figure out this PCAP thing. But I don't see why we wouldn't convene. I mean, like, I highly encourage, like Chris said, like, you have an idea, let's talk about it and let's bring Mid-American Energy together. And like, that's what we could do. We could bring people together and have that discussion and try to provide the resources. So yes. Leland?
Yeah, my comment is really to make sure that we stay with the discussion point is, it's truly a regional area. And if we're really gonna talk in a regional area, 1,000 houses in Plattsmouth is the same as 1,000 houses in Mills County is the same as 1,000 houses in Bellevue. The weighting should stay the same across the region. If you put in 100 electric chargers across small cities, it's the same value as 100 charges in a larger area. Otherwise, you're gonna lose your geographic equity across this whole study. It really becomes just an Omaha study. And if it's truly a regional study, you need to treat it like a regional study.
I just wanted to add on to Jeff to answer your question. There is a lot of federal funding already available. To Eric's point, in new construction, there are billions of dollars available right now in tax credits through the IRA. So for new buildings, and there have been people trying to get the word out on those, but for some of the upgrades that you would probably already put in your HVAC systems, or even thinking about the envelope of a building, if you're using some of the more available technology, there's hundreds of thousands of dollars in tax credits that are available. It also reduces your depreciation value over time, which is significant in any new building. So those resources are already available, and they used to be approved on an annual level federally, and they've been approved for a 10-year period. So that's really an incentive that we have to get in front of developers, and it can give cities, I think, the encouragement to actually change policy so that they can feel certain that there is benefit to folks that are building in terms of new construction and have these energy upgrades in them.
Real quick, can you share something?
Yeah, just a couple of points. One is, I totally agree with Meredith on the huge energy burden that is just so disproportionate. And there's two boxes that get checked right there. We're focusing that on the folks that need it the most, and there is a greenhouse gas reduction. Those are two things that absolutely are gonna help the competitive nature of it. Second comment is kind of to, are we energizing elected officials and, leveraging that? We can't assume that they know what we're talking about. This is a very complex, there's a lot of moving parts here. And we absolutely have to have a consistent message to elected officials about what this is and what makes the most difference. Elected officials has pet projects and they think, oh, this is wonderful, but it has to be projects like Meredith just said, and the electrification with renewables. The thing that drives me crazy is on page 1, the state of Nebraska, that remote charging stations powered by ethanol fuel generators. We are just chasing the hamster around the wheel here. That's not a greenhouse gas positive thing. So there, sorry for the editorial.
Kim said very nicely that the elected officials do not know what we were talking about. Marco got back to me, the open house on Monday, February 12th is via Zoom. Go to omacap.org to get the meeting link. Option 2 is February 15th at the Kroc Center. at 5 p.m. Option 3 is Saturday, 17th at MCC Fort Campus at Swanson Center. Option number 4 is also on Saturday, the 17th at Common Ground in Elkhorn. So there are 4 options. 2 of them are Saturday, the 17th. The first one is virtual on Monday, the 12th. And the second one is Thursday, the 15th in South Omaha. So
We'll send that out.
we'll send it out. But OMACAP.org has some the data, the glossary, and some ways to sign up to get involved with what the city of Omaha is doing. What other contributions we got to get rolling into some other things. Want to make sure that you get some robust feedback, Carlos. What other questions or suggestions?
Quick question, Keith. Yeah, so just so I understand, so you talked about some of the grant opportunities. I think you're gonna do that now. Okay, so do April. Is there another round that will be coming later, or do all the
We
projects?
don't know.
Don't know.
It is unknown at this time. So thank you very much for all your discussion. We'll try to collect even more towards the end. You'll have a great opportunity. If you didn't feel like talking, you can write it down. But this phase 2 CPRG implementation grant just hit the ground. Basically, the biggest things are that any of your project programs and or policy measures that you're trying to pursue need to be identified in this, what we call the PCAP, right? Just get it to us. Timelines, hey, the February 1st came and went. That was optional. It wasn't required and part of the application. They just want to get a sense of how many people were actually, or how many communities, entities were thinking of applying. It was an optional. We missed the date. That's fine. There's a question and answer period, March 15th. Applications due April 1st. It's not thinking. There we go. So one of the biggest things is Sandbox registration, entity registration, the UEI. That takes at least a month to get your federal registration. So I implore you, and this is where a lot of communities trip up. If you do not have your registration ready, done, complete, do so immediately, or find someone that does have one to help you get started. Like I said, 25-page limit, budget narrative, 10 pages, just on that. And what they're really looking for is those 3 major things. It's including the PCAP. It has a large group of or a coalition of people or communities buying in on this whatever measure policy program. And it also looks at helping our LIDAC communities, right? This workforce development, this low income and disadvantaged portions of our community. How does this measure help them? So those are the big key points. I'm gonna stop talking. If you didn't feel like talking, you can please check out our QR code and take our little survey. Let us know who we need to talk to and how we need to move forward. And with that, thank you very much.
Thanks, Carlos. Thank you.
For more info, just contact me.
And did we capture everything from the folks online, Laura, about comments and questions and stuff?
I don't see any chat.
Okay, assuming that we did, it is bring Owen to work day. Owen, I think it's 8 or 9 things. But he deferred to you to talk about, so bring your Owen. I hope you brought your A game. The floor is yours to discuss traffic reports and the other 8 things that Carlos said.
Segue to everyone's favorite topic, traffic. Yeah. So I'm Owen Stuckey. I am MAPA's new GIS coordinator. For the past 6 months, MAPA has been working on its biannual update to its traffic reports. It's our 2-year analysis of traffic patterns, intersection and interchange changes, updates to our freight, transit, bike share, and biking ped patterns as well. The data analyzed looks at numbers from 2020 to 2022. So every 2 years, we'll do this analysis and we'll gather count data from around the region, whether it's from the state, from the counties, whether it's from small municipalities or consultant reviews as well. So this looks at volume changes since the 2020 pandemic. So some of these numbers are going to really pop, but that's mainly because there was that huge reduction in traffic volume during 2020. And we've done some extra analysis prior to the pandemic as well to kind of give a context to these numbers. So this shows the count data from the jurisdictions that we surveyed. Came from Omaha, Sarpy County, Douglas County, and the Nebraska Department of Transportation. You can see that, you know, there weren't very many counts taken in 2020, of course, because of the pandemic, but then there was a blow up of counting in the years after that to kind of rebound. So in Iowa, we did not get updated traffic numbers because our region, our part of the state, or Iowa's part of our region, was set to be counted in 2020. They did the count, but they did not feel that that data was very good. So they decided that it was a poor representative of typical conditions, and therefore they didn't publish that data. Our region did have some small individual counts in the intermediary, which were used for this analysis, but a full counting is scheduled for this year. So we will be getting updated numbers, and our traffic engineer is working very closely with ITOT to make those numbers really comprehensive. So this looks at the top interchanges in the region. These are just the ones that are along the interstates. The interchanges with the highest amounts of traffic this year or over this 2-year period was I-680 and I-80 with 231,000 vehicles per day. It actually overtook I-480 and Kennedy, which was the highest in 2020, the last time we did this. 84th and I-80 moved up 3 spots from the 7th busiest in 2020 to the 4th busiest in 2022. As far as the intersections, 90th and West Dodge continues to be the busiest. It showed little change from the last report. It had, looks like 91,000 vehicles per day in this report, which was an increase of 15,000 from the last one. 120th and L and 72nd and Dodge were close in 2nd and 3rd respectively. 132nd and West Center made it into the top 10. Previously it was at number 13. It had 51,000 vehicles per day in 2020 and is now up to 58,000 in 2022. So analyzing the change in volume across the region using traffic analysis districts, which is what these kind of small areas are here, we can start to see where concentrations of growth or shrink are occurring. In this period analyzed, we saw the greatest increases occurred in rural areas of Sarpy County and Douglas County, where development is increasing. Traffic in the region overall grew by 13%, spurred mainly by growth in southwestern Sarpy County and the urban core and outer Douglas County border, separated I-680. Data indicate that traffic increased by 15% across Sarpy County, 13 in Douglas County, and 13 in Potawatomi and Mills. The Omaha urban core saw an increase of 10% alone, and it's likely that a return to offices after the pandemic caused that increase. So this is the context we wanted to give prior to the pandemic, so you can kind of see how those changes have actually been rather than just the explosion during after the pandemic. You can see that the VMT change regionally was 5.8% compared to the 13% growth seen in 2020, 2022. Highest concentration of growth is in rural Douglas County, which seems to maintain from the other reports. But with Southwest and Sarpy still seeing a higher amount than other traffic analysis districts. Comparison of 2018 and 2022 also shows much lower VMT for the urban core and all of the Iowa side. Similarly, when comparing 2021 count data to 2022, regional VMT growth is even less, only 3%, with the area of outer Douglas and the urban core I-680 still standing out. Traffic analysis districts show flat or little growth from the previous year, while the urban core, South Omaha, and northeastern Sarpy County see reductions in VMT. That's millions of vehicle miles traveled. This table aims to show how VMT was spread across the different street, road, and highway types in the region. Each federal functional classification first is measured for the length of miles that it exists in our region, and then average daily traffic for a period is counted and multiplied by length of road segments to find the VMT. The pandemic's impact can be clearly seen from 2019 to 2020, as all road classes saw large reductions in traffic, with a rebound happening in 2021 and a leveling off in 2022. This graph helps to understand those numbers visually by geography, with clear increases being seen by all classes in 2021, but Sarpy and Outer Douglas seeing the most sustained growth over into 2020. I'd like to bring some attention to our online traffic data portal. We update this every year whenever the new numbers come in. It makes it so it's much more interactive and you can kind of get into the weeds of specific locations, whether that be segments, intersections, or interchanges. There are graphs that detail individual road segments, and you all can also see the annual average daily traffic by year if you click on an intersection, as well as the AADT count and the last time that it was counted if you click on a road segment. Last but not least, we have posted all of these new reports live on our website, including a wall size traffic flow map with insets for more complicated areas. It looks like I didn't get the link for that traffic flow map on here unless it's, oh yeah, there it is. And this is the wall size. This is about like 5 feet across. If you'd like to kind of even get into the nitty gritty with some of these, we have an inset of downtown so you can see the kind of numbers that we're going to be dealing with whenever it comes to maybe some streetcar development. So with that, that's the traffic report. Does anybody have any questions?
Nice, that was fast. That was a lot. Good job. So I understand you've been here or in this role for a month now. You've been here for a long time, but you've been in this role for a month.
7 years at MAPA and in this role for a month.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
So Owen's one of the MAPA success story. Owen started with us as an intern back in his UNO days. And so really just growing his position. Obviously, we talked last month about Josh leaving us for another career opportunity. Josh has been with us for 10 years. And so really a lot of experience in our GIS. I'm happy to pass the torch to Owen. He's been working on this project for a couple of years now. He's been kind of leading this. Does a lot of other things that he interacts with all of you on, building permits and other things. So congratulations to Owen on the new one.
Appreciate it.
Awesome.
I got one question. So on the map you showed, I noticed that West Broadway, there was no traffic information about their account. Is that because IDOT?
The Iowa side?
Yeah, is that because IDOT transferred jurisdictional maintenance and ownership to the city, or? I mean, that's our primary east-west corridor, so I have to imagine there's some data out there.
There is. I mean, the data is not very new, and most of those counts would have come from consultants. And unfortunately, like I said, the Council Bluffs numbers weren't updated really that well either because IDOT handled most of that. So
It's skewed by a very small data set.
Yeah.
This report, just because Iowa opted not to publish the 2020 traffic counts because they were so impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic, they couldn't apply their normal factoring process to it. But in 2024, I would expect to see kind of a large change as we get a larger sample size. It's, where there's decreases in the counts that we received, those kind of reflect and get kind of aggregated up to the regional level. So I would say it's more of a flat year for Iowa. It's hard for us to really kind of compare kind of year over year with that big absence of probably 90% of the data that we normally get from Iowa.
And Chris, we're working with Andy over at the new traffic engineer over at Council Bluffs to ensure that important corridors are not missed in this count. So we're coordinating between Council Bluffs and Iowa DOT to try to ensure that those counts get done this year in 24. So we're anticipating this summer, there's gonna be a lot of counting going on.
So there will be an option to do the traffic count on that US 75 corridor between 680 and Blair.
will there be an option?
Yeah, you guys ever gonna do something up there?
Well, we just accept the counts. That would be an NDOT problem there, but those counts do exist. We just kind of shrink down our area of analysis to the TMA. And that's what our main focus is on, but those numbers do exist. You can get them from the NDOT or you can contact me. I've got access to that data as well.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Owen, how do these data fold into or support or align with Vision Zero strategy, plan, investment?
Well, I mean, you're looking at some of these corridors that have high numbers of fatalities. You're able to see the amount of volume that is driven down them, and you're able to see a lot of the times that they're like with the instance of US 75 actually, how it cuts directly through neighborhoods at some points. And so that gives us kind of a strong confidence that we can make change there by looking at the data. We can show the exact numbers for it. This is a high fatality region. This is a high traffic region. Let's do something about it.
And I would say too, when we're doing safety analysis, the denominator a lot of times is VMT. So as we see changes in the amount of traffic, and so if we see fatalities increase, but traffic increase faster, our fatality rate might decrease, right? But so these numbers are the denominator in a lot of calculations that we do that support safety planning as well. And so those are it's an important piece of that. It's a little more challenging when we start to look at bicycling and walking and other forms of non-motorized transportation. You don't have great regional data sets to support that. For vehicle miles traveled, it's pretty good.
Is rural Douglas County just everything outside of Omaha city limits? Is that
It's normally what's outside of the I-680 loop. But that's not really what I would call rural, like, we wouldn't call, like West Dodge.
Outer Douglas.
Outer Douglas, yeah, not rural, but yeah, that northwestern portion of Douglas County is seeing just a crazy growth, lots of development, so.
Which, I mean, that the growth of vehicle miles traveled compared to the last presentation of that goal of use of public transportation and such growing from 1.5% to 5% by 2030. There's just a lot of tension between this.
How are we gonna serve those neighborhoods? Yeah. That's a complaint that I hear often is like, why isn't the bus coming to me?
Or just the development, like pattern and changing.
Right. Yeah. All right. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Owen. Next up is Mike.
Okay, I'll go up there to make this easier. And, I don't want to
I love the quick
talk about all your input and not get your input in this meeting. So I'll go through this fairly quickly. If you're going to be at a MAPA meeting for the next several months, you'll see more of this. But we do an annual survey each year. It's kind of one way that we get input from our community members. We do a lot of community visits throughout the year, and that's another way, but we want to give people kind of a uniform opportunity to provide input into our planning process. So thank you to all of you who took the time to do that. There were many RPAC members on that, but we asked questions that kind of range from, specific types of community assistance, housing and development, and transportation. And so I'm going to go through and give you just kind of brief highlights from what we heard, kind of the more quantitative side of this. We go through it as well and get all of the narrative input from each of our members as well, and identify kind of some of those specific areas where we can take an input. And I've got them slider here. So you can't see the bottom here, but basically it's the respondents by counties. We had just over 30 responses this year, which is up from 19 last year. And so continuing to see more interest in using this form of feedback to MAPA. Actually, could you click back in? Thank you. So the first category, kind of community assistance requests, is where we give people kind of the option to toggle whatever is relevant to them and then provide input on other things as well. You see funding for local projects is kind of the top line thing, kind of that grant management, grant writing, and administration that we do a lot of around the region. Parks or trail investments, comprehensive plan and zoning updates, placemaking, public engagement, and then water and sewer infrastructure. And I mean, if you look at a sampling of our work over the last 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, that's probably very typical of what we've been doing with communities across the way. And then you see other categories here, whether it's from training to climate action to brownfields. There's other categories here where MAP has had some programming over the last few years and seeing continued interest from our members in those areas as well. And then obviously some sort of like one-offs there, transportation corridors, downtown redevelopment, affordable housing being added in there as requests as well. Local priorities, so we had those kind of two broader categories where we had more specific strategies, housing and development and transportation. We asked kind of this top line question at the beginning of each of those sections of how important are these strategies? This varies year to year. I would say in some years we see a lot less priority in one category or another, but housing and development and transportation both showing overwhelming importance to most of our community members who participated in the survey in the upcoming year. Getting into housing and development more specifically, housing choices, housing affordability off the charts for interest from our community members. So we're going to continue to look for ways that we can support that work across the region. But then also just increasing housing stock, rehabilitation of existing housing, and new commercial and industrial development in communities, as well as transit-oriented development, being kind of categories that reach that 10 or more responses through this survey. Going into the transportation side, support for trails, for walking and biking, sidewalk connectivity, improvements to support economic development, and then on-street bike infrastructure and transit investment being kind of the core categories that reach there. And again, if you were here last year, I think this affirms a lot of what we saw last year. It affirms a lot of the work that we're doing across communities, but we get a granularity here. And frankly, this is important to us, but really those kind of individual comments and places that people think that MAPA can add value are really what we spend a lot of time going through parsing and trying to understand the connection between things and seeing that one or two communities have a similar need, bringing those folks together and chatting about how we might address that. And so thank you to everybody who participated in this. It's not for nothing. It takes us a while to get through all of it, but you'll be seeing more of this as we get into our work program and budget development here for the next several months. If you attend council officials or RPAC in April, you'll hear more about that and kind of how we bring this all together and share some of those more narrative pieces as well. So thank you to everybody who participates. More to come, but this is kind of an initial update. Happy to answer any questions if there are.
Spirit Mike, I'm sorry if you already said
Vicky.
this, but.
Vicky, one of our respondents.
Just a quick question, did you aggregate any of this data to show the responses from actual different communities or maybe a little bit more narrow where these responses are coming from?
You know, we can do that. We can cross tabulate by like kind of which, you know, what Mills County folks said, what Omaha folks said, what regional organizations said. We haven't done all of that yet, Vicky, to show kind of the differences between, you know, placemaking in rural communities. I would say though, it's not, it's pretty diverse, I would say. You know, there's kind of a broad range of interest in a lot of these categories from urban, suburban and rural communities, but we can cross tabulate in that way. We haven't done that yet. We do that from time to time. But again, a lot of that comes from the narrative of people talking about similar things and saying, you know, we'd love to see a training on this topic. We see things like that all the time. Or, you know, brownfields, hey, we've got a vacant abandoned building. We have this, you know, unusable lot. How do we, you know, make something happen? And those are the places where we see opportunities bring people together. But we haven't cross tabulated the data piece to that level yet. Jeffrey.
I know there's only one request for affordable housing, but you have like 25. So is
That was something that somebody typed in.
Right.
By their own accord.
Okay.
Yeah, so we had the other box, that was just one of the
That wasn't
things.
one of the options I had.
When it was an option, you see that it was the top option when people were able to respond. I could have color coded those differently perhaps to show that those were things that people typed in individually, but yes, exactly. That was something that those bottom three were things that people just identified as specific areas that they wanted to have a conversation about. But yeah, when we ask the more specific, you know, giving everybody the same option to choose from housing affordability and housing choices rose to the top. So again, not an area that I would say maybe 5 years ago, MAPA was really deeply engaged. It was something we heard in the Heartland 2050 visioning process was really important to consider going forward. We've obviously facilitated a lot of things around missing middle housing through the Heartland 2050 effort. Again, state law changes, opportunities to partner with cross-sectoral leaders. It's an area that we want to be as valuable as. Anything else? Otherwise, thank you. Want to make sure Keith has time to talk.
I'm going to debrief this next month. So as Laura comes on, I guess I would just ask, when it's time to survey members, as you kind of to Vicky's point, and as we want to get a representative sample, make sure that we can remind each other and invite others to contribute so that that survey can be as participatory as possible. I know y'all do that, but you know, use us to try to expand that. Laura, it's on you.
Perfect. We just want to run through a few things for committee business. I know I talked to you guys about this a couple months or at our last meeting, but for anybody who wasn't there, just wanted to let you know, so your membership does run for our fiscal year, which is July through June. So we will ask you to reaffirm whether you would like to continue serving or whether you'd like to represent someone else or bring someone else to represent your city, county, or organization. So just letting you know that'll kick off next month in March. So you'll just be getting an email and you can just kind of let us know if you want to continue serving or would like someone else. That does go ahead to the MAPA board for approval in May. And if you are appointing a new member from your organization or jurisdiction, they will get an opportunity to do 1 hour training. I think most of you have gone through that, but just kind of a MAPA 101 before their first meeting, so they kind of know what to expect and what the work of the committee is. I also wanted to update on our Heartland 2050 mini grant selection committee. If you remember, we have 2 members here from RPAC. There we go. 2 members from our group, 2 members from the Transportation Technical Advisory Committee, and they sit on a Heartland 2050 mini grant committee. So that's part of our federal funding that goes to support Heartland 2050 kind of the vision and things that will bring us closer to that vision. So we did have 2 volunteers last time. So Jeff Spees and Christine Stokes will be representing RPAC on that. But the meetings are coming up at the end of March and early April if that second meeting is needed. But really, they look at the applications that we received from the region for this particular Heartland 2050 mini grant block of funding, which is about 300,000 for the region. Is that correct? Sorry, I didn't have that number in here.
330,000 in federal funding generally, but just as a preview, I think we received close to 750,000 at least. I mean, I know there's other planning requests in there, but I mean, over $1 million of requests for planning assistance from MAPA this year, which is very significant. And so there will be a lot to consider.
So we appreciate everybody applying and the transportation team. If you were just curious about potential future applications, they are more than happy to walk you through, talk about which funding bucket is best for you to apply for. But just wanted to let you know that they will be working on that in a couple months, and you'll get another chance to see that information. Also, RPAC bylaws. So we talked about getting a small group together. So Keith, Ashley, and Bruce have volunteered for that, and we are looking to just set up a first meeting for that. Just to review the bylaws. When we did the quorum update last year, we just noticed some other things in the bylaws that we might want to talk about. So just some things about how are we appointing at-large members? Do we want a maximum of 40 members still? Just going through some of those things we thought you guys might want to talk about. So they will that small group will work with MAPA staff to just review those bylaws and then take some suggestions and thoughts to the larger group once that comes up. Now it's time for committee updates.
Thanks, Laura. And I think Ashley is also going to do the bylaws as well. And speaking of Ashley Ray Turner, Ashley's up first with the Equity and Engagement Committee. Ashley, you've been doing some social media around your meetings and promoting some of the meeting activity. That's good.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. Morning. Yeah, things are going well. I think we did a number of things over the last couple of months. One, we did survey our committee over the holidays to just ask about our meeting times. Just to see we had a drop off in some people, and is it because it was virtual? Do people want to come in person? Things like that. And so we have moved towards having every other month and moved back to 3 versus 2:30, which works better for some people a little bit later in the day. Also, yeah, getting very involved in just promoting it on social media. We're a little bit more proactive about letting people know when we're meeting. I think equity engagement is one of those committees that everyone could come to and kind of a good entry into the Heartland 2050 mission and vision. And so trying to do some work there. But also, spoiler alert, we did all that work and we might also be moving the meeting again to potentially join meetings with housing and development. I think we are hearing a lot, obviously, with our survey and just in the community that housing is an important issue in our community, and obviously the need to talk about equity and engage the community at large about those decisions. And so I think that'll be a good move. Also, another way to promote the equitable development scorecard. We're also looking for more people to come and talk to you about that. And so, yeah, so good changes that are happening there. Our next meeting, we will meet February 13th at 3 p.m. in this room and online. We're also going to hear from Metro. They had a really good presentation at the Code Conference about some of the things that they're doing around equity. And again, what does that look like from a transportation lens? So I'd encourage everyone who did not get to participate in that to maybe come to the meeting. They have a really interesting exercise where you kind of go through a day in the life of someone actually choosing different transit opportunities and how that has a big picture effect on our community and people who live here. So yeah, that's all I have for now.
Thanks, Ashley. I did go to that breakout at Code. It was eye-opening. It was a good exercise. Jeff, so y'all are working together did I hear you say, have meetings jointly or
in the future?
Current.
Well, so in February, the next week or so, I'll go to the equity meeting and talk about housing. And then in our March housing meeting, Ashley will come and talk about equity. And then we'll hopefully be on the same schedule and just combine those committees moving ahead.
I see it.
Yeah.
I get it.
That's what we want to do, if that's okay with the MAPA rule makers.
Without objection.
This group, okay. So our January meeting is canceled due to sub-zero temperatures. But in the meantime, the vice chair, Brian Ackert, of our committees, has been working with him and Omaha by Design. They're working on a missing middle housing playbook. And we've been a part of the city of Omaha on 2 different work groups for the housing affordability action plan. So there's like a lot of other stuff going on. And then with the land bank and a project with them, and our committee has helped give input to that. Given the survey sort of interest in housing and development, I'd be interested, or group and seeing how we can be a venue for that, or maybe a little more involvement with MAPA staff in the programming that MAPA can offer to the region. So maybe like have more interaction with with Grant and his group in our committee moving forward. That'd be our request. That's really all I have.
And to clarify, we'll combine our committee meetings, but we'll still have obviously things that come up that will both contribute to the meeting. So we'll still be separate committees.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for Ashley or Jeff at this point? Did Mike send any information for infrastructure?
He did. I'm just gonna go ahead and provide you with the update. We would like to report that we received an update on the final digital equity plan and from our responsible TIF infrastructure committee working group. At our last meeting, UNL provided some students and they are helping with the research. On the upcoming meeting, we will be hearing from OPPD regarding their master plan updates at our next meeting on February 7th. And finally, the infrastructure committee have goals to do membership outreach drive and revisit for the strategic plan in 2024. That's it.
Okay, thanks. And Saul is not taking questions for Mike.
Yeah, at this point.
At this point. Not this point. Thank you. If there aren't any questions, Kent, natural resources.
So natural resources met a couple of weeks ago, and our big focus right now is really to go back and reassess the goals and objectives in the action plan and make sure that we have some alignment there. And the second focus is really then to structure that alignment around the climate action plan. So that the subcommittees there, air, water, open space, local foods, solid waste, all of those can support implementation, initially development of the plans, but then more importantly, implementation and get energized on that. So we're looking at all of the action plan stuff right now. And so anticipate that we'll have some recommendations for some changes to those that again mirror the climate action work. That's kind of where we're at. I'm not going to spend time talking about specifics. I'm assuming that the minutes to the meeting, which do have a bunch of specifics, that's available to anybody, isn't it?
Yeah, we send out the minutes.
We just send it out to the
But
group though,
just to the committee, I mean,
yeah, we can
anyone
post that.
here can get access to those,
I
right?
think that's a really great,
Okay,
yeah, we'll make sure to do that.
that you don't need to hear me talk about that.
Okay. Well, okay, thank you. So between the subcommittee chairs that are here, are any of you, I know you're open, but are you actively recruiting for additional participants or new members?
Always.
Always?
And we have gotten a few, so
Okay,
that's good, but yeah, I turned no one away.
Okay, Jeff?
Yep, and I'd say the kind of the best turnout is when we make specific invitations to members.
Okay.
What we're gonna talk about and why they would be valuable for them to attend. That's been the best effort to drive attendance.
Okay, and probably food too.
Yeah.
I'll be there if you bring some pizza.
So always have
Same.
Yeah, always recruiting for sure. I think also one thing that we discussed a little longer further out, but combining all of our committees in December for a more social kind of occasion. We've done it my committee's done it the last 2 years. We invite other committees, but kind of making that the thing of also like people coming together to be able to learn more about Heartland 2050 as a whole, and the opportunities. So also let's save the date for that. We don't have the date yet, but we'll see you in December.
Okay, got a little bit of time.
Yes, you have a lot of time to play.
Great. Okay, thank you. If there are no questions for Kent, and we will keep rolling to MAPA updates.
Perfect. So we do have public comment periods open for our federal transportation funding, so we try to kind of keep you guys along on the progress of this, but applications for local federal transportation funding were due in January on both of our programs, and so now we put those applications out and made them public and offered ability to comment on that. That just opened yesterday, so you guys will be getting an email this afternoon with detailed information on that. But there are two different areas, so you can kind of see between the blue and the gold. The blue is our transportation management area and the gold is RPA 18, so Regional Planning Affiliation 18. We administer both of those. So we're kind of chunking them out together for people to provide input on whichever one. So there's a URL here. Again, all of you will be getting this today in your email as well. But and then here is a different URL to provide feedback on the RPA projects. But those will both close at the end of this month. So we're hoping for all of your feedback in February. So once we get that feedback, then the project selection committees will review your feedback and all of the comments received in order to select. So the Heartland 2050 mini grant selection committee will be reviewing these comments in order to determine what they'd like to fund. We also have a save the date for our upcoming Council of Officials meeting. That'll be Wednesday, March 13th, the venue at Highlander. We will be providing lunch. We don't have the registration link live today, but you will also be getting an email about that here shortly as well. But just save the date. We're going to have a couple legislative updates from the Iowa side as well as the Nebraska side. So that'll be a very interesting meeting.
Or who is typically the audience at council of officials?
So we generally just invite our council of officials. So those are all of representatives from all of the jurisdictions within our 6-county area.
So that's the designated, so it'd be the mayor of the city or county commissioner, county supervisor, the county level, chief executives of special purpose units of government and other kind of community officials. But I would just say, it's a great way of connecting with leaders. We see a lot of city administrators, deputy chiefs of staff, and other, key leaders across the region.
And those are open to the public, so that we would invite all of you to come in and attend that. There is a $15 fee for lunch, but just to let you know about that. Any other questions? All right. We just want to give a quick little update on Safe Streets for All. You will probably be hearing about that a little bit more as those projects get kick off. We did, I believe, inform you that we had gotten some grant funding to work on Douglas Sarpy and then Council Bluffs, Carter, Lake Crescent, and McClelland in Iowa. We have also received, RPA 13 and RPA 18 joined together to submit a separate application, and that is that area 2 that I've called out there. So they were also awarded grant funding to do some work in those areas, specifically in the larger cities in those 2 areas, Atlantic, Clarinda, Glenwood, Heartland, Missouri, Valley, Red Oak, and Shenandoah. So you'll hear more information, but I just kind of wanted to give you that heads up that we did get that additional funding and those projects will be moving forward as well. MAPA calendars, just in case you want one, it's still almost January, so just in case you don't, you missed the first month there. Newsletter sign up, I think a lot of you are already on that list, but we do send that out every other month just by email. It's a great way to keep on touch of everything that's happening. And then, oh, actually, no, you know what? We have 2 community updates that we put in here. So we got this Grants 101 workshop information that is coming up. I don't know, Mike, you shared this. So this is Department of Health and Human Services.
Maybe want to talk about this.
Yeah.
I sent it out just as an update, but I know that it's being held.
Yeah, it's a workshop that is being held. I'm not sure if they're sold out yet, but I would recommend going to the link there and getting some additional information. So yeah, we're one of the hosts of that.
At the end of this month on the 29th. And then the AARP Community Challenge is open right now. So the grant deadline is March 6th. It's a quick action projects and they've got kind of 3 different categories. Todd with AARP is a great friend to MAPA and our work, so he would love to answer any questions you have, but there is a website address as well as an email to ask any questions, but we can connect you with Todd in Nebraska AARP as well if you have questions, but they love to give money away. They love to do this work, so please hit them up for that. Oh, how'd that get in there again? We'd love the calendar. But if there's any other community updates.
Look at us running ahead of time. That's a good thing. I know that the MAPA board met last week. Is there any questions from the board for us? Anything notable for this body to know that the board is talking about or is interested in or.
Is that a leading question, Keith? I'm trying to think of.
It might be. I mean, just if there's anything of note from the board meeting.
I like that continuity. I'll come more prepared next time. I mean, a lot of what we covered at the board meeting, we covered here today. We talked a little bit about kind of the starting of our budget process, our annual dues request, and kind of that budget setting piece for MAPA. We did the traffic reports. No, we did not do the traffic reports. That's correct. Keith, you put me on the spot. Now I'm trying to recall the board agenda. You know, we got through the board agenda, Keith, and that's why it just goes down the memory hole. I don't think on the next one, I'm trying to recall anything else. I don't think there was anything else too much of substance on the board agenda.
And so the real reason for that question is, I'm kidding. No, I don't. There's no ulterior motive there.
Can we talk about NARC maybe?
Sure. So the National Association of Regional Councils, of which Carol Vinton is the executive vice president, senior or president. I can't, you've got a very officious title and I cannot recall what it is. The national conference is coming up. This is one of our national associations, similar to, you know, the National Association of Counties and National Cities, for regional councils like MAPA. And we go down there in late January or February. This year, it happens to be co-located starting on the day of Super Bowl and ending on Valentine's Day, which is really great for my marriage. And so we'll be traveling there. We'll also do legislative visits at that time and talk a little bit about our transportation and economic development programs, and also support for things like community development block grant programs, things that are, you know, making a huge impact across the region in communities large and small. And so just talking a little bit about those priorities, connecting with folks on at the legislative level on applications that we know are coming for federal assistance, and making sure they know ahead of time that those requests are being made. But that's our. This wasn't on the prep.
Yeah, from board, we had Sue's 10-year service award and Grant Anderson. 10 years, so he's a longtime tenure here. And I think the other big highlight was the safety performance measures. Is just a yearly thing that transportation in the region has to figure out transportation safety target measures that we have to provide to the federal government. It's a kind of ongoing requirement. We just discussed that and have that approved. If you guys want more, we could come back in April when we're kicking off Safe Streets for All and give you a little background on that as well.
Okay.
Can I mention that Front Porch Investments Spring 2024 Development and Preservation Fund Cycle opened yesterday. And so applications are due March 1st, and that will be $9 million in loans in this cycle and $2 million in grants. And I think of interest to this group is to know that the loans in this cycle will be available outside of the boundaries of the city of Omaha. We've been limited to the city of Omaha through our ARPA partnership for the last 18 months. And this is the last cycle when we're spending those funds. We also have other private funds. So Douglas, Sarpy, and Council Bluffs could also be considered for long and short-term loans in this cycle. And so all that information is on our website as of yesterday.
And that goes through when? March 1st. Okay, so yesterday through March.
A couple of just updates. Well, one, if you're a resident of Omaha, you can file to run for Metro Transit's board, which will be elected for next year. The deadline to file to run for that office is March 1st. There's 7 districts. The election commission has a map of those districts. And then 2, the Midwest chapter of the International Association of Public Participation, IAP2. There's a conference in Omaha that Nebraska chapter has been organizing. It's April 17th through the 19th. The registration's open. I know the deadline to submit session proposals was January 31st, but I do know they will accept it if you want to try to sneak it in now.
Thank you. Great info. What else?
Anyone? Seeing them? Yes. So, Potawatomi County is just finishing up our wind and solar ordinance updates. And they'll probably catch a lot of media attention. They've been watching it pretty closely as it's moved along, but the board has finally reached a consensus on what they're gonna adopt in for us, and they are fairly restrictive on the wind side. We had a large public outcry over that part of it. So, we've gone with some community setbacks, some parks and recreation area setbacks, as well as just larger setbacks from homes out there. And I think it just kind of was Supervisor Wickman made a really good point of saying, it's not really our regulations, but more our population base that we have out there that's going to kind of push out the 3 major projects that we're looking at Potawatomi County for new wind projects as of right now. But that should be wrapped up in about 3 weeks.
Will it be the report that's issued? Will it be some media around it? Or how will that?
The media will definitely be there as they adopt the ordinance, but there won't be any report that goes out with it.
Yeah.
I got one. Next week, Lutheran Family Services kicks off their Dana Village up in Blair. It's the old former Dana College. They've acquired a pretty large share of it. They're going to transform it into a transition for youth aging out of foster care with training opportunities, housing, and basically set on a campus-like structure so they can have some way instead of just being dropped out of family services or out of foster care on your own. So and that'll start, the open house will be next Friday, and they'll start transitioning from there.
Oh, that's good. Thanks for that. Kristen.
All right, real quick, the city of Gretna, we are in the process of updating our comprehensive plan. We started that last June. We hired the Lakota group out of Chicago to help us with that. They will actually be back in town Wednesday, and they are going to be getting more input from the community on Thursday especially. They'll have several pop-up events, like at the Gretna YMCA that morning, Hy-Vee in the afternoon. They'll also be at the Children's Library, and then the bigger event is actually from 5 to 7 next Thursday, February 8th at the Gretna YMCA. So if you know anybody, you or anybody else lives, works, or does business in Gretna, please encourage them to come. So we do have information about it on the city's website.
Great. Thank you, Christine. Mike.
For Cass County down there, just wanted to give a shout out for MPVA. It's coming up to conference here next month, March 6th through the 8th, Kearney. The 75 bike bridge construction has started on that over the Platte River. Happy to see that. On the solar front, we're anticipating a possible permit application coming in maybe April, May is what they're talking about right now. So I'm still shouting from the rooftops that we also need to be looking very strongly at neighborhood solar, because we have a lot of smaller communities that could greatly benefit just from a neighborhood solar standpoint, even as a possible option to 3,000 acres of crop ground. So we're trying to look at that more closely. In my building inspector, and I've traveled around the county, we've been noting that in the ag community, our farmers are really embracing the solar with regard to their fencing and waters, keeping the waters thawed and things like that. So
That's good. Might get that in the PCAP.
yes.
Thank you.
Writing it down on this sheet of paper.
Tim, you, okay.
Yeah, Bellevue is also rewriting our comprehensive plan and transportation plan, and February 21st, we have a joint meeting, planning commission and the city council to do some visioning on what that looks like. And then we'll move on to public input after that.
I have one thing to piggyback off. OPPD is going through just starting a feasibility study to put community solar on the closed State Street landfill at 126th State. So that you should have a pretty good sense of whether that's going to happen by mid-year.
Positive news, Mark.
Pete, I'll talk a little bit with the chambers and our urban core committee. The very active year last year. One of the big things was the housing committee that was chaired by Nancy Pradal with Lambright Earson. a couple of members here of that group as well. Put forth some very aggressive housing recommendations for the urban core. Again, overall goals, 30,000 new residents, 30,000 new jobs within the urban core over the next 20 years. I think we've got 17 years and 11 months to go. So we're working towards that, not that we're counting. But so we'll be working with the city as we move forward to implement that. Obviously, a lot of market rate kind of component along the streetcar corridor. But as part of that, there was a proposal that would create an affordable housing fund that would at some point in time help take some of those excess TIF dollars that might be available moving forward and funnel that into that housing development fund. Recommended front porch maybe would be the tool that we would utilize to kind of help distribute those dollars. But I think that's a great win to help ensure that we have kind of that mixed development in the urban core with both affordable and workforce housing as we move forward with the changes that are going to happen within the urban core.
Great, I was gonna say, you talk about affordable and workforce.
We put them together, yeah, and so, but obviously they are separate, but for our purposes, we put it together because we need to make sure that there's both of those that are there.
Okay.
As well as the market rate.
Thanks for that, Mark. We got about 10 minutes. We can talk about the Huskers beating Wisconsin last night. Well, we entertain a motion to adjourn. Ashley has.
It's my day, Multi Black History Month.
Hey.
Lots of programming to participate in, lots of ways of support via dollars, particularly as you think about supplier diversity. We're talking a lot about housing and other development in our communities, making sure that other people also have opportunity to participate and thrive. So that's all.
Thank you for mentioning that. There's a lot of educational resources and Black authors and displays that the libraries around us are doing, and a lot of ways to support Black art and entrepreneurs. So thank you for mentioning that. Actually, thank you very much.
Hey, Keith.
Yes.
If I could throw in a couple things, echo what Mike said, the upcoming Nebraska Planning Conference, early March. We do have a new scholarship program for first-time attendees. It's called the Donna Lynham First-Time Attendee Scholarship for up to 10 people. Covers the registration costs. If anybody's interested, you can apply online on the MPZA website. And also, we're a group working on trying to, well, it's underway and getting going already, an Urban Land Institute chapter for the Omaha, Nebraska in general. If anybody's interested in that, will be a lot of various events coming up throughout the year related to that too. And the Nebraska Planning Conference, I want to mention too, there's a number of good housing sessions being planned for that. So encourage everybody to take a look at the agenda.
Thank you. Thank you. And the ULI chapter is a regional deal?
Yeah, it's the Nebraska chapter, basically.
Okay. Statewide, great. And then MPZA?
Nebraska Planning Association.
Okay.
Conference is in Kearney, Nebraska.
Okay. Questions for Bruce, MAPA, anybody else? We can keep rolling. We can just see that win last night. You see the Husker. Seems like I started telling Mike before I started to go. I've never had a chance to storm the court in my undergraduate days, but I would have been out there last night. I might have took my shirt off or something. With the graduates out there excited. Motion to adjourn? So move. I'll second that. Thanks, y'all.
Okay. Have a good
Have a good weekend.
Look at that, 7 minutes. Oh, no.